Good evening and welcome to the STS-88 post-landing press conference. With us this evening to discuss the conclusion of Endeavour's flight, we have Space Shuttle Program Manager Tommy Holloway, and joining him, the STS-88 Entry Flight Director John Shannon. And we'll have statements from both these gentlemen, and then we'll be happy to take your questions. Tommy?
Good evening for some, and I suppose good morning for others. Endeavour has just landed in Florida, as you know, the 10th night landing for the Space Shuttle, the 17th straight landing at the Kennedy Space Center, and 24 out of the last 25 flights have landed in Kennedy. And John, that's really a remarkable accomplishment on the part of you and your team. STS-88 was a great flight. I keep coming over here after these flights and say it couldn't get any better than this, and I trust that it will stay that way. The rendezvous and the grapple seemed routine. The berthing of the station elements appeared to be easy. The EVAs were smooth. There were team coordination across the entire system from between the Russians and people here in the Houston Control Center, between the control center and the flight crew. The entire team did a superb job. The people who prepared the hardware, the processing down into Florida, the flight preparation, the training, and the flight execution all did an outstanding job. And although it appeared easy, I can assure you that it took a lot of hard work, a lot of preparation, and a lot of attention to detail to make sure that it operated the way it did. There's many people that I would call heroes in this system: Cabana and Ross and Hardy and Bastido, Rowe, White, Kennedy, Henson, Lombardo, Castle, and John Shannon, and many, many others across the system that made it happen and will continue to make it happen in the future. So the International Space Station has launched on a long voyage on the new ocean. The International Space Station will visit many ports during this voyage. One will be the port of exciting discoveries in technology and science, where many new things will be discovered and put in place that will improve our lives and improve our ability to accomplish things in space and things here on Earth. A second port will be the knowledge of living and working in space that will prepare us to do even bigger things in the future and prepare us to go on for expeditions that will leave this planet and go to other places. A third port would be the port of knowledge on assembling and maintaining a world-class laboratory and living quarters that again will enable us not only to operate the International Space Station but to go on to bigger and better things in the future. The fourth port will be the port of commerce and industry, and where new businesses in space will be developed and a whole new commerce will be established. This voyage on the new ocean will not be easy. There will be difficult times. There will be waves and lightning and storms, and at times it will be hard. But I'm confident that the NASA industry human spaceflight team will be up to the challenge and will successfully sail to all of these ports, and the hardships will be overcome. As you might can tell, I'm extremely proud of the human spaceflight team and what they have done in 88, and looking forward to the next stop in the port. John?
Well, thank you, Tommy, and it sure was nice to keep the streak alive. It was a very quiet ending to what was just a tremendous mission all the way around, as Tommy said. As we briefed yesterday, the storm system that we were concerned about that may have caused us to wave off today moved off to the northeast. It provided absolutely clear skies and great visibility and very low winds. It was a very simple weather call when it came down to time to do the deorbit. The crew worked ahead all day long. At times they were up to an hour and a half ahead of the timeline and getting ready to come home. They sounded super, and it was just a very, very straightforward, nominal end to a great mission.
Okay, we'll start here at JC with questions. Mark?
Thanks. Mark Carreau from the Houston Chronicle. And I had a question about the way the mission got started, and it had to do with the first launch attempt and the awkward communication, the vagaries of lock, strain back, and the short window. And that's sort of something you have to live with all along here. And I just wondered if this was something that you were having to review, if it was a rather straightforward situation that was already worked out, or just how much concern is there about managing the countdown in the final seconds so you can make all these close windows you have to deal with?
Well, Mark, as you might expect, we take every opportunity to improve how we work together and how we operate and how we make these calls. So we will be going through a process of reviewing those activities on STS-88. John will be participating with the people down in Florida, and we'll be reviewing how we tag up, how we talk to one another, what the roles and responsibilities are. And we will work together in that way to ensure that we have the best possible coordination and teamwork in the future. So we always take the opportunity to do that, and we will this time.
And just to follow up, I guess because I really don't know how to characterize a review, is this something that you will handle? Is this something that's more major than that, or is this something simply that you can assign someone on the outside to do for you? Is this really more minor than that, something just kind of reviewing procedures as you would flight rules?
Well, I think the latter best characterizes, your statement best characterizes the situation. We will expect John and Ralph Rowe, who's a launch director, to work together and work on the items that we discussed, and Don McMonigal, who's down in Florida working for the program, will participate in that activity. And since there's a great deal of people all across the program that participate in the launch count and support the launch director down in Florida, I expect to make sure we communicate that to all those elements. We'll have a review at the program level just to make sure we've communicated the situation.
Okay, that's all the questions here at Johnson Space Center. We'll switch now to the Kennedy Space Center and take questions there.
This is Sue Butler of the Associated Press. For Tommy, I'm not quite clear. Did you have the communications blackout for a few minutes? Did you expect it, or was it unexpected? We heard something about being out of communications.
No, I think the communications occurred quite well in this particular case, but we always take the opportunity to improve those, make sure we understand our roles and responsibilities, and so on and so forth. John, do you have something to add?
Well, is Sue talking about during entry tonight?
Yes.
Okay, we did have a short window of about 6 minutes where the vehicle was rolled over and the antenna could not look through the plasma to the teeter satellite, and we saw that coming. We predicted it from the entry trajectory, and we just wanted to give the crew a heads up that we could potentially lose communications with them. Turned out we did not, so that was okay. But we like to tell the crew if we're not going to be able to talk to them for some period of time.
Thank you so much. And my next question for Tommy, I'm sorry if I'm raining on your parade, but no doubt you are aware of a memo that is circulating on the internet alleged to have been written by you. Is it true that you wrote this memo referring to 3 different close calls the shuttle supposedly has had? And if true, would you elaborate on them and then explain how you could increase the number of shuttle flights when you have problems like doors coming off, parachute, etc.?
Well, I presume that someone has put on the internet a memo that I published, wrote and distributed a week or 10 days ago, so I presume that you're talking about that. You know, a great deal of incidences have occurred in the aerospace industry over the last 6 months to a year, including a loss of a Delta 2, a loss of Delta 3, a loss of a Titan, the crash of the airline down in Florida. And I also in the letter talked about 3 incidences in the shuttle program that were somewhat troublesome. One was the loss of the parachute door on the last flight, and then when we were ferrying, we omitted a washer in the attachment fitting when we took 104 out to California on its last trip to OMDP. The third incident was last summer when we lost a PC measurement on one of our main engine going uphill due to a procedures problem in the checkout of that engine when it was way back in the factory. All of these things, when you put it collectively together, give you an opportunity to talk about being observant and detecting that these things are happening before they really cause you a major problem. And in that letter, I reminded all of us that there were 8 things that we could do that would greatly increase the overall safety of the Space Shuttle program. I intended the letter to be a very positive letter in that it would point out the things that we individually could do to make the shuttle a safer system. In fact, I used a term to make an accident improbable, and improbable is a term that we mean. It means like 1 in tens of thousands. The 8 things were that each member of the Space Shuttle team is accountable and responsible for his or her task, function, or project. The second thing was the individual Space Shuttle team member's skills and expertise must be continually pursued and honed. The third item was adequate and thorough analysis is mandatory. The fourth item is adequate and thorough testing in the best possible environment is mandatory. The fifth item is individual rigor and discipline to do it right are mandatory. The sixth item is take time to do it right to ensure there will be a tomorrow. The seventh item was communications and sharing of data and concepts and ideas across the Space Shuttle team are the checks and balances that keep us all on track. And the eighth item was learn from our close calls. So the memo was really intended to remind all of us, including myself, that there's a certain amount of rigor and attention to details that make this shuttle program what it is and the way we want it to be in the future.
Pete Galtieri with the West Kentucky News. By the way, Tommy, what's the status of the investigation on that door?
Well, we have gone through a very rigorous review of the situation, and at the present time, we have not determined a specific cause. At this time, the most probable cause is a combination of two different environment considerations, a delta P created by the aspiration of the main engine ignition and the acoustic vibration being higher than what the design environment was. And so we believe that's the fundamental cause, although we've not absolutely nailed that down yet. We are pursuing two different options to improve the robustness of the door. One would be strengthening the pins that sheared. The second one would be replacing the door with a door that would be fragile and would basically be broken through when the mortar fires rather than be on a hinge. So we'll continue to pursue that until we arrive at a most probable cause and a redesign of the door.
Oh, by the way, then, when do you expect to fly that door again, or fly drag chute again then?
Well, we're hopeful that we'll be able to do that on the next flight, currently scheduled in March of 25th.
Okay. And how serious does NASA take accidental losses of equipment during spacewalks? How just exactly what kind of a threat is that? How seriously does NASA take that?
Well, certainly we would rather not lose equipment during spacewalks, but typically when we lose hardware, it separates from the vehicle and separates fairly rapidly and moves away, and it is not a threat to the space shuttle. We'd rather that did not happen, but we don't consider it to be a major threat.
Okay, and for John, what were the weather environment at the time of landing, and why did the commander choose to land with a tailwind?
Well, at the time of landing, there were the official observation was clear. It went clear about 15 minutes before the Endeavour landed. The winds were very light. They're about 5 miles an hour down the runway. We did pick the end with a tailwind. What we had told the commander, Bob Cabana, before deorbit was what the conditions were. If we would have taken the headwind side, landed on the 3-3 end, it would have been a lower energy day, which means the shuttle, which of course is just a heavyweight glider, would not have landed as far down the runway as we would have liked, so we would have picked what is called a close-in aim point. In other words, when the vehicle is coming down on its final approach, it's pointed at a point that's a little bit closer to the runway. In our training, in our simulations, in our discussions, we had discussed that the particular preference of the commander was to try to get a nominal aim point as opposed to a close-in aim point, if possible. Since both ends of the runway were go, we passed that up to Bob and asked him what his preference was, and he responded with exactly the choice that we had intended for him to, and that was to take the 1-5 end with the nominal aim point, and it would just have him touching down a little bit longer than on the other end. But both sides were go, and when both sides are go, we'd like the crew input as to which side they prefer.
Jerry Hanahan of Time Magazine, I guess it's another flight question. It seemed that the commander was exercising the flight envelope a bit. The banks, the angle of his bank seemed, if I read them correctly, a little more steeply than usual. Are you pressing the envelope or just exercising the feeling of flying that machine in air?
Well, I guess it would depend on at what point. You know, the vehicle is controlled by onboard computers all the way until about Mach 1, which is fairly low, about 6 minutes before the vehicle actually touches down. And the banks, or the turns as you call them, are all to decrease the cross range to the landing site. And that was all computer controlled, and it's exactly like it has been for every flight. The heading alignment circle that he flies around right before he hits the runway was exactly as it has been for every flight of the shuttle. So there was really no difference at all.
Okay, that's the last question at KSC. We don't have questions at any other NASA centers. We'll come back here if there's any follow-ups.
Thanks, Mark Carreau from the Houston Chronicle. And I had just a follow-up question to Sue Butler's question about your memo, Mr. Holloway. And I just want to sort of see if I can understand the context. Were you more alarmed at these incidents that you recounted, or were you more asking the workforce not to be too cocky with success and trust the system to be strong enough to deal with those sorts of problems? I'm not sure I understand whether you just all of a sudden had great concerns about safety, or you were just trying to look down the road and say, if you don't say something now, a little problem could become a big problem. And I'm just not clear at what the context of your thinking was in this memo.
Well, it was a combination of all of the things that you talked about, Mark. First of all, it's my responsibility to be concerned about safety. I've said before that the lifeblood of the space shuttle program is safety. I think we live and breathe safety. That's our business. And we need to be continually focused on the business of being safe. In the process of having observed these things that I talked about earlier, not only in the space shuttle program, in other parts of the aerospace industry, the Titans and the 2 Delta flights and the airline industry, it became obvious to me that there are basic sets of principles that if we operate by and we universally apply those principles, that the business of being safe can be dramatically improved. And I just felt it was my responsibility to communicate those ideas and those thoughts to the workforce. The shuttle is a robust system. It's fundamentally a very, very safe system. The people make it safe. And I wanted to remind the workforce that it was their responsibility and our responsibility to do that. That includes the decisions that I make every day, as well as the remainder of all of the shuttle workforce. So I see it as a focus on what we're all about, and a reminder to stay focused and keep doing the same kind of work that got us where we are.
Okay, that's it for questions. Just a couple final programming notes. Due to the lateness of the hour, the crew post-landing press conference, which had been scheduled for 6 hours after landing, has been canceled. The STS-88 crew are scheduled to return back here to JSC on Thursday morning. The welcome home ceremony at Ellington Field is planned for approximately 10:30 a.m. Central Time and is expected to be carried live on NASA television. And that'll essentially wrap up our STS-8 mission coverage. So we'll conclude by wishing everyone happy holidays and best wishes for the coming new year. Thank you very much.